right, welcome back, everybody. We're all back from lunch, and we'll be continuing with a panel of some of the presenters that you've already met today. Dr. Wendy Belcher, Jenica Brown, and Dr. Jeremy Brown will join us in a panel, and we'll be discussing, doing a close looking of the Miracle Mary paintings, and specifically the Syrian potter's poems. So let's welcome everybody. Give us a few minutes to set up the panel up front, and we'll be discussing shortly. Sarah. Yes, it's going to be this one. Yeah, the Syrian potter's poems. That's okay. It's okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm standing over at the computer, but what I'm going to do, those on the screen, and you can see it up here, is I'm going to go to the PEMM website. Yesterday we had a little bit of a problem with everyone being on the site, but I still think it's kind of cool if you have a chance to go. So the idea is to do a close reading of this particular story that we have chosen. And I'm just entering the name of this. We've not talked a lot about doing this, but the idea is that you've heard a presentation about how to look at paintings, how to think about paintings. And one of the exercises I do in my classroom is then I put up a story and I just have us talk about it. What do you see? What are the differences between this painting and that painting? I think right now, this particular story is a very famous story. Maybe Dawit would be better at telling this story than I would about the Ephraim the Syrian and the Wadasi Mariam. Do you want to say something briefly, Dawit, about the story itself?
Sure. So the story is. See where you do.
Right.
That way you're on camera.
Yeah.
Yes. Sure. So the Wudasi Mariam is one of the prayers that I think you're first introduced to. It translates to the praise of Mary, the glory to Mary. And it is a prayer that's broken up into 7 days. It's one of the first things that you're introduced to when you go to church. You hear this prayer all the time. The story is fascinating because it tells you how this story developed. And it's of this Syrian who is beginning to wonder about how to praise Mary. And then each and every single day, he starts to compose this prayer for her. And every day she comes and she's like really saying, okay, what do you have for me today? You know, and it's a really poetic way of expressing it. And my favorite part is on Sunday, the culmination where he's a little tired, you know, every day he's getting up and composing this poetry. And she comes, she's like, wake up, you know, it's time. You have to praise me. And then he completes the praise. So it's a very beautiful, poetic way of talking about the genesis of this prayer that is very much has a big place in the Ethiopian Orthodox and Eritrean Orthodox churches. This is, by the way, one of the first things you get tested when you become a deacon. You don't know that with Dasei Maram, you're in trouble. So.
Thank you, Dawit. All right, so the idea is we have all our experts here, we have you, we're just brainstorming. So this is the picture of the Virgin Mary appearing to Ephraim the Potter on Monday. So just go for it. What do you notice? What do you want to talk about? What questions do you have? But
see the crossed arms and the figure in the back. Would that indicate that that is a person and not one of the archangels, since we were told that we normally see her, the archangels?
what do you all think?
Hmm.
Who is that person? Audience member, does it work?
Yeah, I mean, I would take these to be clues that we're talking about an archangel. So I think those are probably veins. But I agree that body posture suggests at least somebody following Mary, part of the attendants.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe those are more heads in the background.
Yeah, I feel like those are angels in the back.
Or aren't there people with him? Sorry, I should have read the story beforehand. So the story, what number is the story?
14.
14. So you will not be on this particular page, so you shouldn't be slowing us down. But if you go to, or you look on the website for Syrian the Potter, you can see the story there and how exactly it's going. So,
When she comes down, she's attended by a heavenly host.
all right,
I do think that way, probably.
okay.
The blue part suggests that, and I was gonna say, you've read a lot of stories where Mary comes down and the figure or this in the storyline, it's Mary. And you get down a little bit more and it says, and then the angels, so it's assumed that when Mary comes, she's coming with a host of angels. And that's been a pattern. Actually,
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Good.
sometimes it'll just say two shining young men, and you're like, oh, Michael and Gabriel.
But it was a great question, Alicia, because we ourselves were like, wait, is this a person or is this an angel? Because usually the angels will have a halo. Or sometimes, sorry,
Yeah.
I apologize. All right. Listen,
I'm curious of the type of pottery or like any archaeological notes that could be made. My anthropologist is jumping up and saying, well, like what type of pottery is it? Not only what are those specific implements or items used for, but is he on a certain scale of artisanry where he might work for nobles versus the common folk or something like that? So I just have questions about the pottery itself.
so just to say, we're coming to these paintings just as cold as you are, so we're here just all brainstorming together. So you guys, what are these implements here, instruments or tools?
Left is a coffee pot. I know that one.
This here?
Yep.
So you gotta have some coffee to keep yourself going.
Mhm.
Actually, I wonder if that's the device you have to, I don't know what it's called, but not a dunk, but for washing hands.
Oh,
yeah.
the pours for the hand.
Yeah, the
wash.
base.
You would pour it into the basin with the hands.
The hand, the picture, I guess, yeah, so that's what comes up to me when I'm saying that.
The one on the bottom,
Because it
right?
makes-
It just says the shape,
Coffee,
but
water.
that's interesting, where is the base, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this could be the basin here. It's just small, if it
I
gets
was
small.
going to say,
It's a cup.
Tiny coffee cup.
Yeah.
oh, so maybe it is a coffee, yes.
So, but then what's this then? And what especially is this?
That's the incense holder.
Ah.
Gomez. Okay. Nice. See, I would have expected, again, for it to be the scribal instruments.
Hmm.
But of course, he's not scribing, he's composing, which is probably oral, right?
Yeah, and probably how you say code, this is the potter.
Yeah.
Rather than.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay, sorry. So Ephraim the potter must have pots. What are the pots? Of course, it's coffee.
Would those all have been like ceramic or metal or? He's a potter. They should be, they would have been metal,
It's
but.
Clay,
a black clay.
Yeah.
a black clay.
And are these like local forms or are these forms that viewers would think these are Syrian? Because that's the.
Depicting the foreign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Foreign.
They're also white and not black.
Uh-huh.
Fancy.
But one thing to say about if we're gonna assume it is a coffee pod in a small cup, it's not Ethiopian. That's not the type of like city you would expect if you guys are from the coffee making thing, which is interesting. So
It's hard to know in a previous century, but even they look clear to me, so maybe it's glass, like a little Turkish, like have the glasses or something like that, but.
You know, what's interesting is when we buy the little coffee thing, you look at on the back, it says made in China. New Syria.
Right, they were imported from Syria.
Like a samovar or something, right? A whole different way of doing things. Yes, sorry, remind me of your name. Susan, I can't. These that need to be better. Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's me, but the colors, am I seeing emotion in their faces? But I don't think I've seen that before, but I don't know if it's the color, but I see emotion maybe.
Good question.
At the end, the one smiling.
Yeah.
What kind of emotion? What does it mean?
Okay, good.
The gesture.
What does this mean? And like this.
I think she's, Mary's feeling for the person that has their hands up, maybe to be right, yeah.
I would almost read it as like proclaiming, because he's praising.
Like
oratory, yeah.
Like in church or
Yeah.
something.
so in liturgy, for example, at one of the most like important sections, I want to say important may not be the right word, but the priest usually does that section with holding his hands up, just like this. So it's to say like, I'm raising my hands up. Some people say it's also to receive the grace, like you're holding, like I'm ready to receive what you give me. Another is like, I'm submitting it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But she was selling it's that a bit guilty, but I don't want to go like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
I was kind of thinking sad too, but then again, it's kind of like, maybe being really humble, I guess,
Humble.
you know?
There's often not a lot of work with the mouth to express emotion would be my instinct to say. You'll definitely see, if you see two marks, like black marks on the cheeks like this, when I first saw them, I'm like, are they scars or whatever? Are they tears? But in fact, they're like signs of stress, usually. Yeah. So there are certain kind of cultural signifiers that you'll see. And of course, we're looking at this 300 years later, so who knows what people at the time would think when they were looking at it. What else do you notice?
I'm noticing size difference in Mary being larger, and not just by the halo, but larger and taller, such that the eyes of the potter are looking up and Mary's gaze is kind of downward. And obviously this, the veneration, the submission, and then this gesture here with the hand out. I've seen priests do that, where when someone comes, is this like, what is that? Is that a blessing? Is that?
I would say it is a blessing kind of notion. Usually with, of course, a priest, he would take off his cross but when you're being ordained, for example, the bishop will lay his hands on you. That's how you get ordained.
I mean, it says in the story, right, that Mary blesses him and then and then she leaves, right?
Yes.
So I think it's a gesture of blessing. There's many hand gestures, and this is pretty open. If you see somebody doing this, it's actually not a blessing, but a sign that they're speaking. It's a like sign language to say this person is speaking. So we don't have that here. We have the gesture of openness and yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, I'm not an artist, but she's diminished. She's like, what's up with that?
Oh, he's the.
So this is the potter,
I'm gonna have.
and here's Mary.
Mary, I'm gonna help you, but you know, the shadow, I'm here protecting our arts or whatever. But she's gonna help them. The one behind is like, I don't have anything, I'm like, right. And then the one that's sneaking up in the back, that's one is taller than the red. How come in art, she could be taller really, but she's much taller. But Mary's face is bigger proportionately.
Yep.
The two beside her. Something is going on. You artists take over.
It's not representational art, right?
Yeah.
It's religious art, it's sacred art.
Done, because Mary's face is bigger to show that she's the brains of the whole thing. Like,
Yeah, she's the most important.
She can either use the knife, the gun, or the.
You'll see some where you're like, is that a kid? And it's not a kid, it's a servant. Like there'll be a really dramatic difference, right? So you cannot use size to interpret age or adulthood or anything like that. It really is about the significance of the person. Yeah,
What is on Mary's shoulder?
This mark,
nice.
the symbol. I
Star.
see the cross on the front.
It's a star. It's a really like just common and famous part of some images of Mary, actually starting in Europe, but Ethiopia also adopted it to put the star on the blue mantle.
Yeah.
And then the cross on the.
And then the
forehead.
cross on her forehead. What do you guys think about this halo? How awesome is it?
She
That's-
flashy.
Right? Right? So, yeah.
I think the fabrics in this painting are also really special, like the potter's skirt, I don't know what you'd call that, but it has like a sheen to it, it has a lot of depth, and Mary's robe also seems like particularly richly painted, and there's pattern on a lot of the fabrics.
This is my favorite manuscript ever, the Gunda Gunde manuscript. It's just absolutely spectacular.
I was thinking like silk or something.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
You feel like you could touch it, and it's really like, really
Really
nice.
soft.
Yeah, the blue, it's just like, that's velvet.
Yeah.
That potter's skirt reminds me of some fabrics that I've seen that were from India that have like embroidery sort of
Yes.
scattered across it.
Yep. Very textile oriented, which is quite fascinating and something that Jenica talked about a little bit.
Yeah, I think there were always textile imports, but especially like in the 18th century, there was so much coming in from India, from China, from Europe, that like the royal court and all those rich people were like collecting these items because they were so prestigious, so beautiful, and then they show up in the paintings as well. Yeah. Sometimes really detailed, like you can look and be like, oh, that's an Indian floral, like conscience. We know, like sometimes they're really detailed.
Yeah. There's just so many lovely things happening here. Like the potter has green on top and red on the bottom. The angel has the green on the bottom, the red on the top, right? Like there's a lot of thoughtfulness. Sorry, somebody had their hand up with there.
Well, I was gonna say, the crowd, remember we were talking about, is it an angel or is it somebody coming for a blessing? Maybe they're in a line waiting to get blessed. Cause we see a crowd in the back. So are they wanting to,
I think it's a crowd of angels.
Oh,
I think she has a host of angels, a myriad of angels with her. Yeah.
I think they're also connecting mentally. I don't think they have to speak with one another. There's some kind of mental connection there
Mm,
because the eyes are connecting and.
yeah. You'll notice the red border that Jenica talked about, right? This is a classic red border. I also think you have these solid banded backgrounds, that this is a particularly spectacular use of it because she has a halo and then she has a halo.
Halo, that's not fair.
I know.
Distinguish the potter is left of the.
Yeah,
He's earthly.
he's earthly. Yeah. And also it's like a crown halo, right? Like you could see somebody actually wearing a gold
Yeah.
You know, with this in it, yeah. Helen.
Yeah, Jenica, could you expound upon your thoughts around colorism and colonialism? I thought that was interesting that you revisited that. I just like to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, I just think that when we look at the artistic record, it's not like there's a clear change once colonialism becomes an issue, or even like a stronger European presence. It wasn't colonial per se, but once, you know, the Portuguese start coming in the 16th century, we don't necessarily see like a big shift in the aesthetic in the Ethiopian art. I think across the centuries, sometimes the figures are paler, sometimes they're very dark. Maybe they're paler in our, you know, in our interpretation more often. So for that reason, I wouldn't say, oh, this is clearly like a Western intervention. If there was some colorism in the culture, given the history of the region, all the different ethnic groups mixing, I don't think it's fair to say that this was necessarily because of colonialism. And again, there might be other explanations as well for why sometimes they painted figures lighter skinned, how they might have interpreted that, why some artists thought I'm going to do the figures darker because I want to. Like there's lots of different reasons besides colonialism and even besides colorism.
If you really want to get into this issue, you can look for demons. Let's just go there.
Can I just add another thing? That might just kind of, Egypt is really connected to Jerusalem, right? That's why Lalibela is supposed to be the second Jerusalem. So I mean, so that's kind of another way that like, kind of, that might also help to explain why the figures are a little lighter, maybe, because if you're constantly in communication with, you know, I think the Western, that's the version.
Yeah, I mean, I think they may well have just thought, oh, this is what people from this region look like if we're painting Mary and Christ. Or because they were bringing in images, which doesn't necessarily mean that they interpret, you know, that paleness the same way that we might.
Oh, yeah, no, they definitely did
Yeah.
not. They don't notice it. They don't notice.
I'm getting distracted, you guys, but I just have to show you this painting here. This is just an amazing, also an amazing manuscript, much more modern. What is this, 1900s even? Check out this angel with the hair.
Okay.
And demons. This is the cannibals. Sorry. And the purple.
Even her hair looks kind of like a hairstyle. Mary's.
Yes. Yes. That,
Little
just
blue demon.
a little
Cutting
bit,
off of
yeah.
your tongue.
I mean, sometimes it seems like the demons are
Sitting down.
black, but a lot of times they seem blue, like they've used a blue color, so it's not
Yeah, and they're
about
often,
race.
yeah, not really human. They're like animal creatures.
Yeah.
So Wendy, you said that you see a pattern towards Jenica, that the demons are painted darker.
From what I've seen, they are dark, but they're often not like human figures, so it's difficult to interpret. They look like dogs, or almost like I was showing, you know, a friend some. They're like, "What are those cows doing down there?" I was like, "Oh, they're actually demons." So yeah, I think there's a lot that could be dug into there, but it's not.
Demons don't just take human form, but animal
Right,
form, you're
yeah.
saying, but they're usually.
But just a quick note on this, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, when it comes to iconography, especially in the city, we do see a clear trend of importing Western iconography. And again, these are undeniably, you know, blue-eyed, blonde hair Jesus. We see that in a lot of places. You know, so, and it doesn't follow some of the trends we talked about. Instead of blue cloth, you'll see the red one being used. That's at home in a lot of people's houses. So when it comes, but the manuscripts, I would agree. I don't know if we could decisively say anything, but the iconography, we see a clear kind of influence, especially in the bigger cities, things like that.
Somebody online was asking about the gesture. So this is an interesting painting because you have both the blessing gesture and also the speaking gesture. So her left hand is doing the speaking gesture, just for the person online. Sorry, in the back.
No, I got I agree with the answer, thank you.
Yeah, so this crossed arms reminds me of one of the postures that Muslims take when they are praying. And I am no student of Islam, but I've seen the arms crossed as one of the things that they do in the order of motions that they take in terms of going down, standing up, the head goes down. But one of the things that they're doing when they're reciting their prayers is the crossed arms. And I'm connecting that here and with the bowed head of like total supplication to receive the blessing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Any
Well,
official
so
terms.
we were talking earlier this morning. So this is actually just like that is how I usually get a blessing from like a priest or something like
I
that.
receive it.
We use that, yeah, we use that exact motion. And it's also used in various places like liturgy. People are about to receive the Holy Communion, things like that.
Or even like, you know, you start with what you've seen it where.
Oh, yeah.
When you're completely, if you've ever seen.
Prostrate.
where you're yeah, prostrate or.
Frustration. Mhm.
Frustration, you'll see a complete on the ground, and there's similarity. It always says it's reverence, it's complete vulnerability and giving.
Yeah.
So yes, that it appears to be similar.
Yeah, maybe really ancient gestures, you know. There's a really interesting person that we work with, Professor Hamza Zafar, who works on this earlier period, and he says that the Quran is an Aksumite document, that the Aksumites were the dominant power in the world at that time. There's lots of Giz words in the Quran and other things, so maybe if they're Christians by the 300s and Islam is rising in the 600s, maybe the gesture is coming from. Yeah, there's a lot of connections between Islam and Christianity in Ethiopia, and much more
Yeah.
friendly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's, I think, a lot of connections that can be made. Sometimes I worry about like, I don't know what the technical term is, but like false similarities, like we see something happening here, we're like,
Syncretism.
yeah, it has to be connected.
Mhm.
So we have to be a little bit cautious, but we also have to be open to the idea that these are communities that lived side by side. So Islam, we talk about Christianity, Islam is said to have entered very early on, maybe around the Aksumite period, right? So if it didn't originate in Aksum, like we talked about, so from the first half of the millennium up until this period, they're living side by side. Of course, the relationship changed and they had beautiful times, not so beautiful times, but we can't disagree that, there's something connecting them.
Yeah, and I recall from the map that we looked at yesterday of the reach of the Aksum Empire, and that it went over to, the places where the prophet began his teachings and his work and things of that nature. So these are the same people in the sense that even if it's not biologically bloodline the same, we have these people interacting, in the same places.
Well, there's a little bit of biological as well, because we know there was migration from South Arabia to Aksum. Now, one thing that we have to be careful when we say that, I know we're getting out of the paintings, is some of the writings by Europeans have claimed that because the South Arabians came to Aksum, they were, not African, right? This is the result of the South Arabians that kind of flourished at the Aksumite period, which is interesting because the Aksumites also migrated upwards to Saudi Arabia, but nobody would say, look, they're Africanized,
Right.
right? Like, so it's always a one-way street. So we have to really be careful of the way we interpret the data. Yeah.
Yeah, or just when you read old South Arabian inscriptions, in modern day Yemen, it'll talk about, and then the Habashi came. Like, everybody was back and forth.
Mhm.
The crossing the Red Sea right there. I mean, you can do it in a canoe.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have this
And it's not a
mental
one-way
map.
street.
We have this mental map, right? Middle East, Africa, in that they're somehow like 1,000 miles apart. It's like, no, the difference between Medina and Aksum, okay, you have to climb a mountain, but water is the easiest way to travel. So the connection between these two things on the side of the Red Sea, it can be deep and profound. They're not, 25 miles apart, 50 miles apart.
The like very, very early Muslim community found refuge in Princeton too, so.
Yep.
That's like a part of the Muslim tradition is that relationship was really close.
And people were traveling to Aksum, not Africa, right? So they're not thinking to themselves, hey, let's go to Africa.
Right.
But, anyway, I can say.
No, right.
An economic superpower.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question about the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
While I was in Axum, I was
What time?
fortunate to know having there when they had the Ark of the Covenant celebration. So they had this big, whatchamacallit, with supposedly Jesus's remains inside of it, held up, like a wooden, I don't know what it's called. I did take a rocking chair and have it up there, but men literally carried it. And then people were slashing whips. We had tons of people dressed in white slashing the whips. And do you have any of those paintings? But that goes back to way back. I'm not a historian of linguist. I don't remember numbers like that. But do you have any paintings of the Ark of the Covenant, procession when they were transported?
Yeah.
But they do it every year,
I don't know.
and they tell us that he doesn't actually literally just his remains are in his urn, whatever. That
Yeah.
held up.
We tend to deal with things that are in the written tradition. So anyways, Dowie, what do you want to say about the tablet?
Sure. So it gets kind of complicated because it goes back to what I was talking about yesterday. So when we talk about these things, I always say, I try not to focus on the veracity of the actual, stories that we're talking about. So when it comes to the tradition, of course, the Ethiopian tradition states that the Ark of the Covenant is in the northern region of Ethiopia. That's largely from oral traditions. When you look at the written tradition, the earliest written document we have of the oral tradition coming to Ethiopia is from the 14th century, I believe. So when it comes to, Western scholars, they push back on this theory of is it really there, whatnot. But when it comes to the oral tradition, the oral tradition is pretty solid. Now, what do we do with it? It tells us how people viewed themselves, how people operated, how people, their belief systems. When it comes to paintings, I'm not really sure. I don't know if you have more to say on the paintings.
Yeah, I would say, so I study like pre-modern stuff up to the 18th century. Then I don't know of any material like that because it's really paintings about biblical scenes, miracles of Mary, things like this, saints' lives sometimes, but it's all historical for the, the painters at the time, or spiritual. Maybe in like the 20th, 21st century, there might be more interest in that kind of thing because then there's a bigger secular art market and people are painting scenes from daily life, religious scenes, but not historical ones, but like what they're seeing in church and that kind of thing. So definitely there might be something like that out there, but it'd be more recent.
To go back to the Syrian potter, Jeremy has put up this painting.
Yeah, and just showing kind of how Christianity has traveled. We see here a scene of Mary and Ephraim, but the caption's done in Arabic.
Yeah.
So in a Gez manuscript, but with an Arabic caption.
Why do you think it was done in Arabic? Because he spoke Arabic?
I think
assuming, not,
Yeah,
he didn't. but-
Also, the work that is the praises of Mary has roots in Egyptian Christianity as well. So I taught a GES class last week and I have a Coptic Christian student in the class who went, I know this one, as I had them start to read the Praise of Mary for Monday. And he knew it in Arabic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
which was pretty cool. Reading it and then chanting it back in Arabic as I was reading.
Oh, wow, that's
Which
amazing.
was a fun experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can you explain why you know that again?
It was part of the it's part of the liturgy in the Egyptian Christian church. And so he knew it from growing up there.
Is there any other Arabic in this manuscript? I haven't seen any, but.
No, just.
Okay, so because part of what we're trying to do is teach you how to
Just
use
that.
this website. So we just had a question. Is there any other Arabic? So you're in here. This is, sorry, it's not the exact one. I happen to know it's the same manuscript. You can click here, view more paintings from this manuscript. And we can do a quick scan. Do we see any Arabic here? Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the website is very connected. You should be able to get to other things in the manuscript and so on. Here's, what is it called? Lactans? What is the name of the
Yeah, the
Mary
version.
nursing? Yeah, it's an ancient trope.
I have a question that I'm starting to see repeatedly is this bird. What is the bird?
Mhm,
In this, it looks like it's connected to this particular story.
yeah.
It's on his head, it's in the air.
Yeah, so. What do
I was gonna say,
Somebody
it's
said
the
that.
Holy Spirit.
It's the Holy Spirit.
It's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So that's part of the story is when Mary asks Ephraim for praise, the Holy Spirit opens Ephraim's mouth. And like, yeah, it teaches him the words.
Yes. So, we mentioned this a little bit, but, let me do a different type of manuscript, a different image here to demonstrate best. Yeah, can I do this? This is one of my favorite images, and it's a little bit not that sharp. But so this is a truly ancient story about the ring and the fish, where somebody finds they catch a fish, they cut it open, and they find a gold ring inside. And you'll see this in many European countries and BCE all over the world. And there is a kind of a Christian version of this particular story. And in this really spectacular manuscript that's at the British Library, this is one of the looted manuscripts stolen from Emperor Theodorus by the British. But you remember that Jenica was talking about the synoptic painting, right?
Yeah.
You have one painting, and this has 5 moments, 6 moments, right? And there's all sorts of things going on. One of the things I love the best is that this little kid here, do you see this little kid here?
Yeah.
He's doing this, and this is an alas, or like,
Oh.
and he's like, I want fish, Mom. I want fish, Dad, for dinner. So it's really spectacular. But if you're here, you're going to get a huge amount of information about this. So you're going to hear, okay, it was taken from his library. It's dated to the early 1700s. The British Library had that ransomware attack, so you can't really see things right now, but you can see other stuff about it. And then we say specifically, this is in the synoptic style. There's 6 episodes, and then you can read them. The client throws the ring into the river, top left. And the objects in it are fish, water, and hat. The deacon administers the Eucharist, top right, but this is not the order of the story, is it? We do them kind of in order.
Yeah, this one's it.
This is left, right, left, right, left, right, top, bottom. That is not always the case. Sometimes it will go from the bottom to the top or the right to the left. In this particular one, it is.
So don't get to the story, so.
Yeah, you have to go look at the story. But then Michael sits down and the youngest refuses to eat anything but fish. He sends a servant. The servant cuts open the fish and finds the ring here. And when the client hears of the miracle, well, this guy stole it, blah, blah, blah. He becomes a Christian. That's very typical line, right? So just to say, you're going to get a lot of information here. This particular image does not have a caption, but if it did have a caption in GIS, all of those are also translated. So the one we just looked at, in fact, Jeremy, you probably have.
Or you can look at that traveler safe from crocodiles, that has captions prepared.
Oh, yeah, he ain't gonna make it.
So this is another fantastic story about 3 people and one guy getting eaten by a crocodile. You can have many. But you can see here, this painting has a caption in GIS. The 3 Arabs whom the sea wanted to drown. The sea is a character, which is just amazing. So let's look at this for a second, sorry, off the E but okay, what would you notice about this? What would you say about this?
You have your last gesture at the top.
Or, yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah, that's like, oh no. The one who's caught has his eyes closed already. I think he's already. Yeah, he might be already gone.
He doesn't know it's back.
He's not coming back.
But I also see fins and this looks like African catfish.
No, that's the crocodile. He's inside of it.
Yes.
I agree, these spines are kind of interesting. I always remember, okay, Jenica can correct me, but like Picasso comes and people are like, wow, he's so original. It's like, no, you stole it all from African art. That's where abstraction first started. Yeah.
I noticed like on the body, there's like the red lines or whatever. Is that significant? And thinking about what we learned about the red ink, how important it was. Is that something significant?
Here.
Yeah.
Are those wrinkles?
Could be green.
They're
It's
ribs.
supposed to be.
They're
Or
Abs, okay.
No, but on top though.
Oh.
Chest hair.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
here.
It's a representation of chest hair, right?
Abs, okay.
And this is also really
So
interesting.
sometimes, right,
Because here's the 3 guys this is also a synoptic painting, but in a really interesting way. Here are the 3 guys falling in, but only one of them is eaten and 2 of them get out on the rock and are safe. Right? So it's kind of hard at first when you're looking at these. And so the synoptic ones are really good ones to look at with the kids and to talk about how powerful it is that all moments simultaneously exist. And this is the theory of holy time, right? That these men are always falling into the water. They're always being eaten, one of them, they're always being saved. And these are amazing depictions of that.
We have an artist in our midst. And I would like him to come up and talk about his painting.
Okay.
All right, so he is my Sunday school student. I'm so proud. Feel like a dad. He's an undergraduate at American University.
Yeah.
And last week he was actually here at Howard giving a talk on iconography, did a wonderful job. And at the end, he has donated this iconography painting to the Center for African Studies. So just to do like a little talk or overview or anything. So he is beginning to, how long have you been doing this? Yeah.
About a year now.
About a year, but he has done at our local church, he's done most of our icons and is really doing wonderful work. So that's Adus is the name.
Hi, my name is Adus. Okay, so. Second,
No,
okay,
there you go.
so in this icon, as you can all. Can you see
The
that?
glare.
Your category.
Lead it forward, the glare.
Like this? Okay,
This is, the frame is reflecting.
You got the head of the things here.
this icon, as we see, it's the famous words of Christ knocking at the door, and if you answer, you'll be saved. And usually in this icon, it's usually a white Jesus that we see. So I wanted to change that, so I used the ancient Gondar style with the unique halo and the more Afrocentric hair. As you can see, it's more Afro, it's like more like fluffy hair. And then regarding everything else, I wanted to have like the more traditional blue and red clothing, because when it comes to iconography, like the colors of the clothing mean everything. So usually, as you see, the white means purity, and red means humanity. As you like, so like Christ put aside his divinity to take on humanity. And ancient icons it would be instead of white and red, it would be blue and red instead. And the blue means the same thing, like purity or divinity. So I wanted to do that instead, but sadly I didn't have enough time. But essentially, yeah. So, and then you see that there's a quote up here. I can read it to you guys. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come into him and down with him and he with me. Revelations 3:20. So essentially, yeah, that's my icon.
Thank you.